Hello, everybody. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Let's rock!
Feeling fine for the man I've become. Tomorrow's always yesterday, yeah. I am the light, I am the rage. Won't you let me in?
So I just noticed that Rolling Stone put out another best of guitar players. I don't know if you've seen this. The 250 best guitar players. I'm not going to get into it. I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that was missed, and I don't believe that there is a best guitar player. But Hendrix is once again number one. So I wanted to ask you, 53 years after this dude died, he's still considered the greatest number one guitar player of all time. No one's come along since Hendrix that's been better, or why do you think they judge him as number one all the time after 53 years?
Imagine 53 years ago hearing sounds that the human ears have never heard ever in all of humanity coming out of a guitar, and where you're taking the sound of popular music and transforming it into something that has never been heard before, taking it to the next level. That's what he was doing. He was making sounds with his guitar and with the pedals and everything he was doing, plus the show and the persona and all of that. It was so it was a whole other world. It's like he was like someone from a different planet. Sort of what Eddie Van Halen did for guitar players. There was guitar playing before Eddie, and then there's this line, and then there's guitar playing after Eddie, and they're two different things. Well, he did the same thing, but he did it even more. It wasn't just about technique and like it was just the whole thing. Like he changed. Yeah. So he's the guy. That's why. Although in my lifetime, even though I was maybe a year or two old when Hendrix was around, in my guitar playing lifetime, my musical lifetime, it was Eddie Van Halen. He's right. The guy that changed everything. At least for me, I can't speak for my generation or all guitar players, but for me, Eddie Van Halen is the one where before him, the guitar was a utility for the song, and the singer was the voice of the song, and you had your guitar solo where you played your blues riffs. And then Eddie changed the whole game. He was like, all right, now you can play rhythms with this, swagger and just so much dynamics and so much to it, and your solos, you can pretty much do anything you could do with a string. You now have permission. The guitar is now the voice of the song, not just the singer. And even an album isn't just songs, with a singer. Interludes that Eddie was putting into rock albums that weren't really there before, where you just have a guitar piece of this crazy thing. I mean, anything from the intro to Mean Street to Spanish Fly to, you can make a list of a lot of stuff. Of course, Eruption. So he just changed even what a rock album was, what a rock band was, what a guitarist's role was, and what a guitarist does with the guitar, and not just technically, not just lead-wise or even rhythm-wise, but just overall. Like he just changed everything. He was the second alien to come down and just redirect humanity. But Hendrix was the first. You could go back and you could say, well, Charlie Christian, he was taking stuff 100 years ago and he was, adding riffs into guitar playing from blues into jazz but nobody was able to do it where they included a technological change to it all as well. And Hendrix really did that a lot with the effects he was using and just making sounds out of a guitar that just sounds that nobody ever heard before. He changed what music sounded like.
Right.
He added a whole new thing to it. So I think it's that. And I think we're too young to have felt how major that change was, what life was before. It was like going from black and white to color.
Yeah, okay. I'm not going to fight this one. I was thinking you go from Hendrix to Van Halen to, I don't know, Steve Vai, Yngwie Malmsteen, right? Like all of them took the guitar to such an extraordinary different level.
Oh yeah.
But he's the one that is always remembered as the game changer, as the best.
I guess when it comes to that, he was more like the inventor of the wheel.
But was he?
Everyone else did things with the wheel, but he.
Okay.
That's kind of what it was, and it doesn't mean as much to us because we weren't there. The same way I say to people that as a studio geek, I'm like, you got to understand, when you listen to Revolver and Sgt. Pepper and Magical Mystery Tour, these are things that are not possible in reality that they were doing. Everything you heard before that, you were hearing reality being captured, but they started flipping tapes and doing things that just couldn't exist in real time. They were reversing time. You were hearing time go backwards. You were hearing all kinds of things. And now it's just taken for granted. It's no big deal. But imagine hearing that for the first time while on drugs.
Yeah.
The impact of that's the thing. So the 60s, a lot of the music and the musicians had such an impact beyond what we could even relate to, because imagine life without, anything we have today. We have so much today. Imagine, it's hard to remember what life was like before GPS at this point.
No kidding.
Going back to AAA triptychs where some person has a big map with a big red line on it and you have to stop at different gas stations and get the local maps and figure out how to get out of that town and back onto the main road and all of that stuff. And not having a cell phone to coordinate with anyone or anything. And yeah, we survived. But we are so blessed technologically right now and cursed. But to imagine what life was like before that, and then to suddenly have that in the arts, in recorded music, in performance, in sounds, in things that were never even imagined, and suddenly you're hearing them. So I think that's really that's a big part of why he gets number one.
So can he ever be overtaken?
I don't know what can possibly do that.
I guess if Eddie Van Halen can't do it, then no one can, right?
I don't know. Does it have to do with, we don't know where technology is going to go. So if it has to do with brain chips that alter your sense of reality and somebody can play directly into your chip and do things that change what you feel with their music for the first time, maybe that, because now it's all about technology. That's what drives new styles of music and new sounds, new technology. Can't really create something new without it. That could be argued, but that's where I stand with it, is that you wouldn't have hip hop if you didn't have samplers and if you didn't have working the record, DJing, things like that. And if you didn't have that vocal style with it, you wouldn't have metal if they weren't able to drive the amps even further. You wouldn't have good metal if they didn't figure out how to get the click out of the kick drum the way they do. And there's so many things. You wouldn't have electronic music if we didn't get into everything we have now. You wouldn't have had new wave if we didn't get into polyphonic synths. And each one just adds a new layer to what pre-existed.
Is it a curse or a blessing, though?
It's a blessing. I think that's a blessing, the technology. Technology in music is a blessing because you don't lose anything you're adding. You could say, well, we lost the 8-track tape. That's not the worst thing in the world. I still remember where my 8-tracks would fade off in the middle of a song, 2 seconds of silence, you hear the and then it fades back in, unlike my copy of Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell, and New England's album, they opened for Kiss in '79. Those are my 2 8-tracks I had. Yeah.
Ooh. New England?
New England. Do you know that band?
I don't.
Look them up.
I know Kiss, of course.
In 1979, the Dynasty Tour, there was a band that Paul Stanley took under his wing Uh, the name of the band is New England, and it's not as theatrical as Meatloaf, but has that same melodic Queen-esque theatrics. Not as extreme, just great killer rock band with phenomenal songs. And I heard this band open for Kiss when I was 9 years old, Madison Square Garden Dynasty Tour, and fell in love. Great band. Definitely check them out.
I will for sure. This was your first show?
Sure was. Started at the very top.
I was talking to my buddy about this. So many of the, I don't like to use this word, but I can't think of another word, like the shred style guitar players. That's probably a bad word. I don't know if that's a bad word.
No, it's instrumental guitarists that push the technical limits. So
Right.
yeah, it's a style, shred guitar. Yeah.
They all love Kiss. John Five, Paul Gilbert, you, like,
We're all at that age where the first thing that really hit us was Kiss. Like as a little kid when you're discovering music. Yeah, I heard